President Obama got re-elected, declaring Al-Qaeda is on the run. So why did the Director of National Intelligence just say this?
I can't say that the threat is any less.
Ambassador John Bolton has the story.
Well, a big headline from Washington getting a new look tonight. America's intelligence chief yesterday told Congress he can't really say if we are any safer today than we were the year we suffered our worst terror attack. Here's James Clapper on Capitol Hill.
The probability of attack now compared to 2001 is, at least for me, is a very hard question to answer. Al-Qaeda core. Now we are facing a much more dispersed threat. So I can't say that the threat is any less.
John Bolton is a former U.S. ambassador to the United Nations under President George Bush and a Fox News contributor. I thought Al-Qaeda was on the run.
This is a stunning statement by James Clapper. You can't underline it enough. Osama bin Laden is dead and Al-Qaeda is on the run, and he says it's the same 10 years after, more than 10 years after 9/11. Clapper's right, the president's wrong. That's why this is so stunning. This is a repudiation of the entire Obama administration political narrative these last several years by his own Director of National Intelligence.
This is a line Barack Obama used on foreign policy to get himself reelected, that bin Laden is dead and Al-Qaeda is on the run. And even recently, when he sat down with the New Yorker and was asked about these splinter groups that are popping up, the Al-Qaeda sort of offshoots, he described them as JV. And now you've got Mr. Clapper saying the threat is just as great as it ever was.
Look, the Obama administration has tried to define the threat of terrorism ever more narrowly for 5 years so that they can say that this little piece of what's left of core Al-Qaeda has been decimated by drone attacks. But Al-Qaeda has never been a government bureaucracy. They don't hang organizational charts on the cave walls in Waziristan. It's a distributed network. It operates through affiliated groups. And there's simply no question empirically that Al-Qaeda and related terrorist groups have been growing all across the Middle East and North Africa. So Clapper, in my view, is actually understating the threat. It is now worse than it was on 9/11 in total mass, perhaps not capable of a 9/11 attack here. But remember, their objective has always been control in the region where the radicals actually live. The attack on us was part of a broader strategy.
Well, he was asked, when the president was talking about JV, I mean, he was talking about whether there could be another attack on the homeland versus these Al-Qaeda splinter groups we're seeing in Iraq and elsewhere. And Clapper was also talking about an attack on the homeland, saying he couldn't say we're any safer now than we were back then. I want to shift gears with you in a second, but I want to ask you before we do that, do you believe right now, forget what either of these guys say, what do you believe in terms of the likelihood of an attack on the homeland today?
Well, I think it's higher than it has been in several years because I think the accumulated mass of Al-Qaeda has been growing. But I think, if anything, they are now more concentrated on the region where they live, and they are succeeding in breaking states apart, Libya, Syria, Yemen, Somalia, that gives every prospect for base camps for terrorism in Afghanistan when we leave that will be a greater threat to us in the future.
Wow. All right, on another page, the subject of Iran. Andrea Mitchell is the chief foreign affairs correspondent for NBC News. She describes herself as an expert in national security, also in women, on her I
wish I could say the same.
Website. I don't know what that means. If the next time I have a women's issue, I'm going to call her up. In any event, she came out and suggested that Iran was our ally until President George W. Bush included them in the axis of evil in his 2002 State of the Union address, that we were an ally of theirs and they of ours prior to that. Your thoughts?
Well, that's thoroughly silly. There was cooperation with Iran on the subject of Afghanistan after we overthrew the Taliban because we wanted to bring stability there. We didn't want to see the Hazara, very large Persian ethnic and Persian-speaking group in Afghanistan, being used by the Iranians. They were grateful to the United States because we had removed the Taliban, one of their sworn enemies. But let's be clear, Iran was still on the list of state sponsors of terrorism. Iran was still the second most heavily sanctioned country in the world by the United States after only North Korea. We knew they were pursuing nuclear weapons. They were on our list of things to deal with when 9/11 happened. So the notion that somehow we were in any sense an ally of Iran is just flatly wrong. And the notion that George Bush calling calling them part of the axis of evil, somehow destroyed the relationship is silly.
She said they're more or less an ally.
Yeah, more or less. Well, I guess with the equivocation, the ally part disappears. But
I guess it's less.
It's less. Must be
that's where
less.
you come out on it.
Right.
Ambassador, great to see you.
Good to see you.